You're listening to Bottomshelf Bitcoin. This is episode 56.
Relax. Enjoy your coffee. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Take a chill pill. What is it? Okay.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Bottomshelf Bitcoin, the podcast that puts Bitcoin knowledge within everyone's reach. As always, I'm your host, SHAmory, and today my guest is Scott Sibley. He is the designer of SHAmory, a tabletop card game that helps you learn about Bitcoin. Scott, welcome.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be on the show today.
Absolutely. You reached out to me and kind of said, hey, I've got this thing I'm working on, and I had no idea about it. And when you first messaged me, I kind of thought it was more like of a video game style, which would still be cool. But and then when I actually went to the website and saw that it was an actual tangible game, I don't know. I love board games, so I don't have as many as I would like to. It just time doesn't allow me to get into a bunch. But the ones I have, I really enjoy. So that kind of piqued my interest, and very excited about this. So give us kind of your your elevator pitch for SHAmory.
Sure. Well, first off, I'm glad to hear that at initial glance it was well received. That's always a good feedback point to have, kind of that gut reaction. And then kind of the elevator pitch was, one, I wanted to create something, and really I purposely chose something physical to kind of give a alternative approach that would help spread awareness around the Bitcoin industry as a whole, and also help to kind of onboard new users. So I thought about some different ideas over probably about a year and a half period, all centered around different types of games that could go on. And then it really came back to what currently is SHAmory, which puts the user, whether it's two players or you can really have as many as you want. I like to think probably 6 is probably the max you'd want to go with, but go through the aspects of what it's like to mine the blockchain through a series of memory exercises. So the game itself is really a mixture of the technical nature of a blockchain mixed with maybe that classical game of memory that we all played when we were kids, bringing those together in a very non-technical way. So a 5 or 6 year old should be able to play this game all the way through a 20, 30, 40, 50 year old, as a way to start bringing in engagement and just a simple awareness around what Bitcoin is, because I'm a true believer that that's where it all starts.
Very cool. So let's kind of back up then. What's your origin story? I mean, how did you get into Bitcoin?
Yeah, so my origin story is probably very similar to many other people out there. Was that the last bull run, late 2017, 18, that gravitated me in. And like many others, it wasn't necessarily Bitcoin that first grabbed my attention. So I went down the altcoin rabbit hole for a short period. And then I guess I like to think that, well, for many that might have pushed them away from the industry, I was able to kind of take the time to then keep learning, understand the differences between Bitcoin and the other coins that are out there, and what really separates it. And that's really what put me on this adventure for the past few years, and ultimately landed me here today. And even before that, so I went to college and actually have an accounting degree, and did that in the public accounting spectrum for a nationwide audit firm. And so I have a background that kind of, from a math side of things, understands the importance of, say, a distributed ledger and verification and those different aspects. But on the flip side, my current full-time role outside of launching this game is for a local ed tech company, where I'm in charge of marketing, sales, product management, design, very creative type things. So I have that mixture of creativity as well as kind of the math background that may bridge these two things, and being able to bring it into a game format, and is kind of where it all landed me.
Cool. Yeah, I think you did a good job striking the balance on the design, because it's kid friendly without being too childish and where grown-ups would go, and that doesn't look
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, exactly. I played, like I said, a few different versions, and when I started doing things, I probably made it a little too technical in the sense that instead of, for those who can't actually see it, but we'll be able to post the links in there. But the game right now is all visually through these different monster characters that are really the main aspects of the game. When I started creating some prototypes, I was using, say, numbers instead of monsters to do sort of matching to make it more realistic about finding a nonce and matching a target and hashes and that sort of thing. And as we started playing those versions, one, it wasn't as fun, and two, it didn't need to be that technical to be able to do the job of what I'm looking for. So being able to strike that balance between, like you said, a kid and being able to think, one of these monster characters is funny, or someone like myself or yourself, or even older than us, and being able to say, okay, I see this. This is something that, my 20 or 30 or 40-year-old friends would enjoy playing as well.
Do you feel like working in ed tech has helped you kind of know where to go with this?
Yeah, definitely. So that side of things. So my focus for the company I'm at, it's called Journeys Map, and we have created what we like to call Google Maps for learning. So we've literally created a map that instead of getting driving directions, it's trying to plot out your lifelong learning continuum, whether you're in K-12, higher ed, looking for a certification, career transition. And we've been building that out the past few years. And our whole first use case for that product is all around career exploration. And the key component around that is just bringing awareness to these jobs you may have never even thought of based on your interest or your skills fit. And so the correlation back between, okay, awareness around my career pathway. And I've seen over the past few years how that simple awareness has helped, whether it's a K-12 student or I'm in San Diego, we work with the local housing commission here, and being able to get those adult learners to be able to visualize their next pathway around awareness of what that pathway might be, and how that then gets brought back into just awareness around Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, the industry that we're talking about here on the podcast. So there's definitely an overlap.
Neat, neat. I like that. Um, so, um, what I guess kind of what pathways did you go down as far as like looking at various game designs, and what made you kind of pick the what the final version is right now?
Yeah, like I kind of started to mention at first, I'd started trying to create some prototypes literally on my own. I'm not a designer or graphic designer by any stretch of the imagination, but kind of just playing around with some different tools, maybe looking for free artwork that's out there that doesn't have any commercial license to it that could be utilized, and kind of making these prototypes, playing them, say with my wife or some other people to kind of get a sense of what's going on, and then going through that, being able to then build it off into, okay, there's enough, I can do a certain amount of this. I kind of had sketches in my head of where we're at today, what these monsters look like, and wanting to incorporate not just a monster, but have them feel like a Bitcoin theme to them itself. So when you look at the cards, each of the characters has, they're holding a Bitcoin, or they have a Bitcoin logo on their hat, or little things like that to kind of dabble in different aspects of it, as well as the fact that the characters outside of the actual monsters and the illustrations there have some sort of reality back to how Bitcoin mining works. So, for example, as your your blockchain gets mined, you're seeing your chain grow from the Genesis block at block 0 all the way through block 10. That's as high as you go. And as those cards, they're stacking up. One of the little things I added in there is I actually have the hashes from blocks 0 through 10 on those cards that start to show that connection. And while there's no part of that as part of necessarily the gameplay, so the person may have no idea what that actually means, but having the little trinkets in there to let them start seeing little things like that at least starts to lay the foundation. And somebody else, like maybe yourself, or that has the knowledge of the industry, would actually be able to look at that and say, okay, I get this. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I love when I was watching, there's a video, and I'll put links in the show notes so you guys can go to the SHAmory website, and you've got a gameplay video on there. But I love that it is simple enough and does not require special Bitcoin knowledge to play the game. So you could literally play with anybody. But it's from that, then it kind of starts teaching about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Why don't you walk us through? And again, I think this is probably one of those things that like people should go watch the video. I don't know. I'm just a visual person, so I think you guys should go watch the video, and that's probably pretty helpful on learning how the gameplay works. But if you can, just like walk us through what does it look like to play this game.
Perfect. And like you said, there's that video on the website. There's also a text version of the rules in case there's people that are more learned by reading. But in this case, the game at the end is rather simple. I'll try to make it as clear as possible for the audio audience. Essentially, you can have two or more players. They come in, and the game setup is there's 5 different card types. So there are the reward cards that the players get when they've mined a block. So just like you're mining a block in the Bitcoin blockchain, you get the Bitcoin reward. There are the actual block cards. So that's what starts building up once these blocks get mined. There are attack cards. So your blockchain can get attacked in the game as well as then the main cards as far as the gameplay goes. There are the target cards. So just like when a miner is mining the blockchain, they're trying to match that target. So there's a target card that gets flipped over, has a character on it. Like we mentioned, they're all kind of monster themed. So we have that target card set. We then lay 11 nonce cards. So we have the nonce, we have the target. The job of the miner is to find the nonce that matches that target, and we lay all those nonce cards face down, just like you're playing memory. So think about the game of memory, and the users are going to, the players are going to roll a dice, and that dice is 6-sided. There's 5 sides that have a character on it that lets you know that okay, you're going to try to mine, and you get to play. The 6th side is a character that tells you that your chain is being attacked. So for these purposes, let's say I roll the dice, it rolls mine. I'm going to flip over one of those nonce cards. One of 3 things would happen. Either I don't find a match. In that case, I just flip it back over. Just I'm playing memory, and the next player is going to go ahead and roll. Or I flip it over and I find the match. In that case, you're going to remove that card, take the target card away, grab that block height 0 Genesis block card and place it on the table next to it, and you've mined your first block. From there, that third option is there's one card that starts the game as being a difficulty adjustment that's played down with those nonces. It looks just the same on the backside, so you don't know which one it is. If you flip that card over, there are additional difficulty adjustment cards that then have to get laid down. So each time that card gets flipped over, a new difficulty adjustment gets placed down. So trying to act like, just like in mining, can get harder. The game itself can get harder by laying more cards next to the ones you're looking for. So those are the 3 key aspects. If you do roll the attack card, once you've had one block mined, that means your blockchain can get attacked. So you take one of those attack cards, place it alongside the lowest block, and if at any given time that attack card chain gets longer than your blockchain, essentially a 51% attack has occurred, and the game starts completely over. So that's how the game kind of has to reset in all phases. But if you mine it all the way to the block height of 10, all the players have successfully mined the block, so they've earned Bitcoin rewards, and essentially the player with the most rewards would be deemed the overall winner. So hopefully that paints part of the picture for the audience. But like you said, Josh, the video paints an even better picture.
Yeah, I guess one thing that I was kind of not sure on when I watched it, the difficulty adjustment, it makes it more difficult just by placing more cards into in face down that you have to choose from to try and match. Is that the idea?
Yeah, that's the idea. Just to kind of lay in that concept in there where Like you said, the more cards down is going to make it harder to find the match of the target. And so you start with one of those cards at the start of the gameplay. There's an additional 13 that can potentially be laid down if you keep flipping more and more of them over.
Oh wow. Okay.
It's just a kind of way to make it keep going harder, especially if you think about once you get down to 2 or 3 cards, it'll start to. If there was no additional cards, it can become rather easy to find that match. So a way to kind of balance out the ease of play with the technical nature of what we're trying to talk about.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, so let's kind of go back then. We talked a little bit about the design process. What's it like to, I guess, actually like create a board game? Because this is something. Well, actually, let me back up again. I keep backing up in circles. So one of the things I really love, and I said this already, is that you made it really simple. So some friends of mine and I had talked about a Bitcoin board game at one point, and everything we kept coming up with was super complicated.
Yeah.
And we may still make one at some point, but yeah, every idea that we had was as you know, Bitcoin is multifaceted, right? And like there's all these, and it's like, how much do you include the economics and the technology and all this stuff in this game without getting to the point where if your goal is to help these ideas, kind of sneakily put these ideas into people's minds that maybe aren't Bitcoiners yet. At some point, if you make it too technical, then you've excluded these people, and that's not what you want. So, I like that you made it simple, because, like I said, we kept coming up with these kind of convoluted game ideas, and I think they could be fun. The ideas that we came up with were really kind of stuff that would only really appeal to people who were already Bitcoiners, and so that's not really the broadest approach, and not necessarily the best for even getting sales. Like, even just from a business standpoint, like, you're just not going to get a lot of people buying it. So so what's that like, actually getting your game published?
First off, I commend you guys for kind of starting to go down that thought process as well, because like you said, that probably is taking that complexity and boiling it down to the simplicity is probably the hardest part. And you really don't know when you get there until you've kind of a light bulb goes off maybe. And it took over a year to kind of figure that out. So first off, I would say for you guys, don't give up. Keep kind of thinking about it and coming back to it. I couldn't agree more around, I have, sketches and drawings of, I was just using, say, index cards to make some of the first ones. And I was getting as technical as, okay, with the, on the block cards, they have the transaction ID, they have the block height, they have the nonce, they have the prior hash, they have, all this stuff. And I'm like, one, graphically, I don't even know how this would work on a 2.5 by 3.5 card to get it all on there in some sort of cool way. And then secondarily, somebody who's never heard of Bitcoin before, like you said, they don't care, and that's just going to be too overwhelming. And going back to your earlier question around the crossover between my job in the edtech space and here, and that's part of what we've seen and done, where it doesn't need to be a lot of information at once to start grabbing somebody in. A simple awareness, a simple day in the life type video about a career is just as valuable, if not more so, than seeing all these data points and metrics around that career. So the same can be said here, where my brain said, okay, they don't need to have all these things on these cards to start doing the job of what I'm trying to do, and making sure that the concept is presented in some sort of cohesive way. And then I think more to your specific question around kind of the process of getting the game created. It's been a roller coaster, something I've never done before in any sense. Most of the projects I've worked on professionally have been more digital in nature, building platforms out and that sort of thing, or back when I was in public accounting. So this is the first time I've tried to produce a physical product. Everything from the design side of things and how much you do yourself, how much you outsource, how deep you want to go on that, because that can be a rabbit hole in itself that can become extremely expensive. And I wasn't trying to go too deep on that side of things. And I was also, I wasn't completely successful at this at the end of the day. Initially, when I started trying to find somebody who could help support some of this, I wanted to try to find a graphic designer that also understood Bitcoin, at least in some sense, to try to help bring their perspective into the game and make sure that it's understood. At the end of the day, the person who helped me didn't have that aspect, but still came out nonetheless in a format that I really like. And then on the printing side of things, it's there's lots of different companies out there that actually can do kind of low prototype, 1, 2, 3 different print runs of a design. They're higher cost, obviously. So getting, say, one deck this size printed out, a lot of those is probably, $10 to $15 to get it printed in a one-off, which that's not going to return any profit for you when you're trying to roll through things on a sales model. So that side's kind of the easier part, where you can say, okay, I can spend $10 here or $20 there and see what it looks like. Where it gets more difficult is being able to say, okay, I need to have some volume behind this to get those costs down. Mine is also a little more complicated because what I found was the combination of the cards along with the dice makes it a little bit more expensive, only because it's not just printing cards and putting it in, say, a standard tuck box, but you need to either go with, say, a tuck box that also has a tray insert that has a dice placed into it, or the box just needs to be slightly bigger to be able to fit the dice, or it needs to be they call them a rigid box. They have all these different names that I'm all too familiar with now. And learning about paper size and paper weight and color specs. And I know a little kind of the color side of things from the full-time work that I do, but paper weights and that sort of thing is not something that I come across too often. So it's a learning curve, just like Bitcoin's a learning curve. And then the unfortunate part, obviously, health being the first priority. The company that I was going to do a initial more volume per earn from, which is here in the States, had to be, not surprisingly, shut down a few weeks back due to the current pandemic. So for those who are listening, you're free to go on and to the website and place a pre-order. I still plan on getting those turned around here and hopefully by June, which was my initial target anyways, but I'm working with trying to find some new printing places to be able to get that larger volume order from while everybody's dealing with the pandemic as well. So it's been a process. And then even when I thought I got to the end of the initial process, it bubbled up again.
Gotcha. Well, I'm assuming, do you take Bitcoin for the game?
Yep. So it's all set up. So feel free. Anybody can, pay by your standard credit card order or through a BTC Pay server, set up on the website. And they're all there and able to process as needed. I did also, and we can include this in the show notes as well for anybody who forgets, but I went ahead and made a promo code for anybody listening to this podcast. So for that, if you want to take 10% off, feel free to put in Bottomshelf 10 in the promo code box, and that'll drop it in there as a thank you for listening.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem.
Well, very cool. So you said you're gonna try and ship by June.
Hopefully, yep. That's still my target. I'm still actually just planning on. Before it got canceled, I hadn't been to a Bitcoin conference before, but I had tickets to the Bitcoin 2020 conference up in San Francisco. That was back in March that was going to kind of be my
Yeah.
first stab at some low stakes marketing to start mingling there. So I'm looking forward to being able to go when that gets rescheduled in Q3. It sounds like, and I guess the blessing in disguise is in March I wouldn't have had no matter what anything ready. Whereas now, by the time the conference rolls around, I'll be able to knock on wood, take some actual game packs up there and have that more physical approach to being able to share it with people. So for anybody listening who's going to be at that conference, feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to connect then whenever it does happen.
Yeah, that'd be cool. And that way people can actually like physically see it in person and stuff.
Yeah. One of my other ideas that I have related to it is using it as a tool that companies in the space could actually use as a marketing tool. So obviously, when people go to conferences, you get a USB drive, or you get a pen, or you get a squishy ball, whatever it may be. But most of those studies and reports show that the top swag, if you will, that people want to get when they're at conference are things that are game like toys, or things that they can bring back to their kids. And so I'm interested in feedback from companies in the space around being able to create kind of that branded version of the game that they could offer, say when they're at the conference, or if they're trying to recruit a new company as a prospect, and something kind of fun and different that they can give them. And with the branding, maybe there's their logo appears at the top of the tuck box, or there's a sticker on the box, or little things like that. So that's another avenue that I think is a potential stream that I'm interested in hearing feedback on.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So, how can people, if someone's interested in doing something like that, how can they reach out to you?
Sure. So me specifically, so you can find me, email address is just Scott at SHAmory, SHAmory.com. So that's one way. I'm also personally on Twitter, and it's my full name, Scott M. Sibley, Sibley. And then obviously the website is SHAmory.com, and then the Twitter handle is Play SHAmory. And so there's the Twitter feed there. It is also on Instagram and Facebook. I'm focusing on the Twitter side of things right now, just because that's where the more active community is. But feel free to follow in the other spaces as well. But any of those formats, you'll find me and be able to get a hold of me, and more than happy to hear any questions, comments, feedback, or people are interested in connecting.
Well, awesome, Scott. Do you have any? I know we're kind of it's probably a little early to ask this because we're still waiting on the original. But do you have ideas for other games or expansions or anything like that in the works?
Yeah, I do. I some ideas, actually. Part of the reason I wanted to have these characters on the cards is that, especially for that younger audience, if it took on enough, I could see them, the characters themselves being, a plush toy, or T-shirts, or that sort of thing. Just kind of, they're engaging enough where that sort of aspect could come into play, where it's not just a game, but you could purchase a onesie for your baby, or that sort of thing. So there's that side, and then there's a couple other game concepts that are in the back of my head around this sort of thing that may come to life one day if this one's successful. But I guess we'll see where this one goes over the coming months and years. And just having like you said, just a simple note reaching out to you to see if you're interested in. I've done the same thing with others, and people seem to be taking to it well. Obviously, people are getting spammed with that sort of thing all the time sometimes. So just hearing feedback from the people who are kind enough to respond, and obviously someone like yourselves to invite me on a podcast like this means the world, and only helps kind of spread awareness, not only for what I'm trying to do, but also the Bitcoin industry as a whole.
Well, awesome. I'm excited to, at some point, once it gets shipped, play it. And I actually was talking last night to some of the guys in my local meetup, and saying that once this thing comes out, we're gonna have to get together and play it just for fun and see what it's like. So
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll get it when it comes out. But all right, anything else you'd like to say to the listeners out there?
No, I think just hopefully everybody enjoyed the episode. Like I said, I'm love to hear the feedback, so don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you again, Josh, for having me on. It's been a fun 30 minutes or so, and hope everybody enjoys listening. And obviously, above all else, stay safe and stay inside.
All right, Scott. Well, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks, Josh.
All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that interview with Scott. I am really excited about SHAmory, and can't wait till it gets released and we can play it. And I think it's going to be a fun game. Hopefully, all this lockdown mess will be over by then. But, if it's not, it's a great game for playing at your house while you're locked down. And if we're all out and able to get back to work and do whatever, maybe it's a good thing just to have friends over and play whenever they you can actually see real people again, or take on vacation with you or whatever. But I think it's going to be a fun way to get people who aren't really necessarily into Bitcoin, or at least start introducing these ideas to them, especially if you have friends that are into board games and things like that. So y'all go check out SHAmory. I think it's SHAmory.com. And then, again, that code that Scott made for us, which is Bottomshelf 10, BOTTOMSHELF10, and that will get you 10% off on your order of SHAmory. So go check that out. The other thing I wanted to let you guys know about was a playthrough that I posted on YouTube, where I went through the first two levels on Light Night that were released. I interviewed Carlos from Satoshi's Games about Light Night a few episodes back. It's in case you don't remember or didn't listen to that episode, go back and listen to it, or it's posted on YouTube now too. But it's kind of like Fortnite, but that's a really surface way of explaining it. Anyway, it's a battle royale style game that they're going to use Lightning Network and integrate Bitcoin as the in-game currency. So that's really cool. Anyway, I have early access, and you can buy early access, which helps fund the further development of the game. But basically, they released their first level as a single player kind of training facility level, where you can go through and do a timed run on shooting some targets and stuff like that. And then they have their sandbox development where you can kind of play around with the physics. So if you go on YouTube, on my Bottomshelf Bitcoin channel on YouTube, then you can see where I kind of walked you through what's there so far, and kind of what my thoughts are on it and what could be improved. But again, this is early access. This is not even beta release yet. So very cool stuff coming down the line for that. As always, you can share the show out, and that's the most helpful thing you can do to help me and help other people find the show. And then you can always check out the website, bottomshelfbitcoin.com. If you want to support the show, you can go bottomshelfbitcoin.com/donate, or you can go to bottomshelfbitcoin.com/kidsbook, and that will get you a reference link to the Tuttle Twins website. And those are some great books about liberty and free market economics and some things like that, which makes this a great episode to kind of branch out into. We're talking about stuff that's targeted maybe at a younger audience for Bitcoin, so that's great stuff there. But anyways, that will it doesn't get you anything off the cost of the books. The books cost the same either way, and I think you should get the books either way. But if you use my reference link, I'll get a little kickback on that. As always, you can follow me at BottomshelfBTC on Twitter, and stay tuned. I've got another good episode in the works, and I'll catch up with you guys then. From Bottomshelf Bitcoin, I'm Josh Humphrey. Thanks for listening.